All right, just giving a second. Everyone in the waiting room is slowly being let in. So in about, well, well, they're coming in slowly one by one. So yeah,
Didn't we have didn't we have like 400 and some people register for the webinar, right?
yeah, we did. And it seems like it's letting them in from the waiting room one by one. But yeah, so for everyone that is here right now, we do thank you for joining our webinar this month. We are having them once a month. And some months probably more going forward, just because the attendance and the demand for them has really been so great. And we really appreciate all the feedback that we get afterwards and the questions. And it really helps us create better webinars every month that cater to the things that you all want to hear. I mean, these are for your benefit, and they're a great opportunity for all of you to really hear us talk and ask us questions about the experiences we've had. And so yeah, the way it's going to work is we have Mike Cobb here who's going to give a presentation. And then as anyone has questions, please type them into the Q&A that is on the screen. There should be a Q&A button at the bottom or side of your screen in the Zoom window. Type them in, type your questions in. I will be monitoring the questions. And then when Mike is done with this presentation, we will be addressing as many questions as we can. I'm sure there will be lots of repeats, and if you have a question and we don't get to it by the end of the webinar, um, please just send us an email. You'll get contact information after the webinar ends, and we'll be happy to address any of those questions. So I think, Mike, we're 2 after the hour now, so
Okay.
I'll let you run with it.
Very good. Well, nice to be with everybody here. We're going to launch into the presentation. And what I will try to do tonight is keep it to about 35, maybe 40 minutes. I want to leave plenty of time for Q&A because ultimately it's your questions that really will indicate, what your interests are and how the various panelists here we have today can help us. So just real quick, we have a few folks. We have Aria, who's our manager in Nicaragua. He's got some great expat experience. Dan Wilhelm lives in Portugal. He's an American living in Portugal. Betsy Rosenland, she is an American who lived in Belize for 8 years. And then Fabio, who is a Brazilian now living in Belize. So we're going to have some really interesting kind of cross-cultural expat experience that we can bring to the table. The panelists are here to answer your questions. And again, because they're not all American or Canadian living overseas, it really adds a lot to the context to have somebody else's experience as an expat in another country. So we're going to do that at some point into the presentation, maybe about 10 minutes in. I'm going to have a little exercise, and I would ask each of you if you can quickly get maybe a paper and pen or pencil or something, because you're going to have to write down a score, a 1, 2, or 3, 15 questions. And at the end of this little quiz kind of thing or survey, we're going to add the points up. So you can do it on your phone if that's easier, or if you have a piece of paper handy. But go ahead and get that ready so that when we get to that section, you can actually take this quiz. I have to say that this little quiz or survey, whatever you want to call it, is absolutely the best indicator of whether you are right to live overseas that I have ever seen. I'm sure there are complex surveys and questions and indicators and all kinds of stuff out there. These 15 questions have absolutely nailed it more than any other methodology I have ever seen. So we're going to do that here in about 10 minutes. So grab that paper, grab that pencil, be ready to do that. So let's roll into the presentation. And this presentation is really about digital nomad, remote work, whatever you want to call it. And the premise is this simply right here: the world has changed, right? And are you ready? And we're going to get to that part later. But let's just start with the biggest piece of this whole thing, which is for the first time in human history. Wow. I mean, wow, right? For the first time in human history, that is a big statement, right? But it's true. Work and the location of work have been decoupled for many people, right? This is the first time in human history, right? We go all the way back to the caveman times, right? I mean, somebody had to go out and kill the animal and somebody had to pick the berries or whatever, right? I mean, you had to be there to, eat, right? And then, the agricultural revolution, whatever, 10,000 years ago, whatever, people said, well, we can put fences around the animals and we can plant the berries in rows, right? But people still had to be physically present to make it work. And then in the 1700s, we had this evolution or revolution, right? The industrial revolution, but it was a long process. But people moved from the farms in big numbers to the cities, and they went to work in factories, but they still had to be there to work the machines, right? So physical presence was still required. And then all of a sudden in the 1960s, a couple guys came along and they coined this word, post-industrial revolution, right? Alvin Toffler and John Nesbitt wrote a couple books, Future Shock and Megatrends, right? And they were the first people to go, wow, the technology is here. Like, we don't need to be industrial anymore, right? But people for the next, let's say 1970, right? So for the next 50 years, people sat in automobiles, right, on the way to work, on the way home from work, hour each way, 2 hours each way, whatever it was, horrible times in cars to do this. Why? Why? Right? You can do this from anywhere, right? It was because the management philosophies were industrial, right? The manager had to see the worker work to know they were working. And the worker, even though he knew he could do this or do this from home, right? He had to stay in the office because he wouldn't get the raise or the promotion, right? So you had these management infrastructure that was industrial overlaying a technology that was truly post-industrial. Well, COVID or the government's reactions to COVID broke that structure, that paradigm, right? Broke it entirely. Stay at home work orders, right? Said, hey, you have to stay at home. And so now management had to figure out how to adjust to that, and workers had to figure out how to adjust to that. And overall, actually, productivity is actually up. I mean, the surveys are, some, mostly are saying it's up. A few say it's down. Let's just call it even. Productivity stayed about the same. And actually, I think it went up. But at the end of the day, like, it worked. It worked. And you know what? If you can work from home because your work allows you to do that, your type of work, many people can't, but many now people can, right? So if you can work from home, my goodness, make home someplace awesome, right? That's why you're here on this webinar, right? So we're going to dig in. This is big. This is huge. This is a new revolution. This is the post-industrial revolution, and we are just now in the very forefront of it. And what that means is that we don't really know how all this is going to settle. I mean, the ground is shaking. I mean, institutions are shaking, right? Well, how's it all going to settle out? Well, we get to help define that. Isn't that exciting, right? We get to help define that. And if work can be, from home, where do you want to be? I mean, if you like to do really fun things, go find a place where you can do them, right? I mean, and we're going to get to how you do that in a minute, because that's also very, very important, right? But finding community, and we're going to spend some time on that at the end, because community is really important. Who you're working with, who are your peers? And I'm guessing because you're on this webinar, you truly have a sense of adventure. And when you go overseas and become an expat overseas, you are going to be surrounding yourself with other people who share this sense of adventure. It is truly wonderful and magical. And these are the kinds of environments that you may find yourself in. But what I want to do first is maybe offer a word of caution, right? This can be very exciting. It is very exciting. We are adventurous, right? And we want to get going with this. But really, a word of caution is important. In fact, what we absolutely need to do is we need to slow down and proceed with caution, right? Proceed with caution. And we don't know what we don't know. And I've got an example of that in a second. But we also have to forget what we think we know, right? These assumptions that we can bring with us that things are similar or the same as they are back home may be true, but in most cases, they're not true, right? So assumptions can do us in. And ultimately, when we're moving out of the developed world into the developing world, what we're moving from is I call it the safety bubble of the seller beware to the, the more dangerous, I would say, but more certainly we have to be a lot more aware because we're moving to buyer beware, or in some cases for digital nomads, renter beware, right? I mean, you look at the safety net, the safety bubble in the seller beware, all these different agencies and consumer advocacy groups, right, looking out for us, keeping us safe from a predatory seller or predatory renter or landlord, right? So you've got all this bubble, but when we go overseas, this bubble evaporates. It's just not there anymore. And what we have to do is we have to figure out how do we transact in that environment. And if you take we don't know what we don't know, one, and we add it to we must forget what we think we know, and we put those together, we come up with humility. When we're humble in our approach overseas, we will be far more successful. And humility means, understanding we don't know what we don't know, and we better try to get some help, right? Well, this consumer resource guide has 15 critical questions that we need to ask when we're buying property overseas. And I'm going to show you one example. This is question 10 out of the Consumer Resource Guide. Is the home or condominium plumbed for hot water in all the bathrooms? And, most of us coming out of the US and Canada would probably just go, yep, duh, yeah, of course, right? And, here's an example of a beautiful bathroom. It's a beautiful bathroom, right? But when you get down on your hands and knees and you look under the sink, that's what you see. You see a cold water pipe coming out of the wall with a Y splitter, right? So both of the taps up on top of that beautiful, faucet have water coming out of them, but they're both cold. And the shower is cold too. Now, it's not the end of the world, but if you rented a place for a month or 3 months, or you bought a place even, right? And that was a sale for $400,000, whatever that was, 379, right? But you rent a place for 3 months, right? And you find out after you move in that the showers are all cold water. Like, I don't know, wouldn't it be nice to know that before you rent? And you can either choose to rent there or say, well, you know what, I want a place with hot water, right? So um, very, very important. And I like to tell a story about how, little differences can make, little things can make a big difference, right? And and so, when some of you, if you speak Spanish, you guys already get the joke. But, when I moved to Nicaragua, I lived in Nicaragua. I have been an expat. I moved my wife and 2-year-old daughter to Nicaragua, and we lived there for 14 years. But we moved in October. One of the directors of our company, a gentleman by the name of Ernesto Leal, he was getting married between Christmas and New Year's. Carol and Amanda went home after Christmas, and then I stayed for the wedding. And because I was solo, I got seated at a 10 top table with the president of Nicaragua. Ernesto was the chief of staff to President Bolaños. He was also on our board of directors. So here I am at Ernesto's wedding. I'm sitting at a 10 top table with the president of Nicaragua, President Bolaños. I mean, really cool, right? And people are coming and going, but it's 4 or 5 hours of sitting at the same table with the man. And at the end of the evening, we've had a great time. We trade business cards. He writes his personal email address on the presidential business card, gives it to me. And Monday morning, I'm in the office and I think, you know what? I'm going to send him a little Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, right? It's right in between the two. So I kick off an email using a computer like I have right here in front of me tonight, right? Just probably a Dell or something. And I say, Feliz Navidad, which is Merry Christmas, of course. And I don't have, if you look down at the bottom, ANO versus Enye, the little squiggle over the N, and I'll have a squiggle on my N on my keyboard. So I'm just like, whatever, Feliz Ano Nuevo, right? And send it off to President Bolaños. And one of the guys in my office kind of looking over my shoulder, talking about what I'm doing, he goes, oh, Mr. Cobb, you just made a big mistake. I'm like, why? And he said, you realize you wished the president of Nicaragua a Merry Christmas, but a Happy New Anus. So, so anyway, yes. So yeah, right. Yeah, little things make a big difference. I didn't know what I didn't know, right? And maybe I should have asked. I shouldn't have assumed that I knew what it was the same thing, but it wasn't, obviously. So I think these are the kinds of, it's a funny story, but these are the kinds of things that can trip us up, right? We don't know what we don't know. We make an assumption that it's no big deal, but año is year, ano is anus, right? So little things can make a big, big difference. And so one of the ways we can be prepared is to have questions that we can ask, right? And these questions in this consumer resource guide, I hope many of you will make a request for it right now, info@ecidevelopment.com. Ask for the consumer resource guide. It's got 15 questions in there. They're designed to give you specific examples like the cold water, hot water thing, look under the sink, right? That's a very practical thing. But the other piece of it is to help us change how we think, right? If we start to change how we think, then we're going to come up with 10 new different questions that are much more specific to what you're looking at. So we change how we think, we will ask different questions, better questions, and hopefully get what we want. So, all right. So now I hope that many of you have found that, pad and paper and pencil or pen or whatever, and or your phone. And this is really I think the rubber meeting the road for most of us, right? If we decide we want to move overseas, we think we want to move overseas, how do we know if it's right for us? This quiz right here, you're just going to simply write a 1, 2, or a 3 based on what it says here in a second. And at the end, you'll just add up your points, right? So here we go. Question number 1, right? Are you usually one of the first to try new things, new foods, and new experiences, right? If it's no, it's 1 point. Sometimes it's 2 points. Yes is 3 points. And it's the same all the way through the scale. No is always 1 point. Sometimes 2, 3 is yes. So are you one of the first to try new foods and new experiences? 1, 2, or 3? Are you able to relax and willing to adopt a slower, easier going pace of life, right? Can you relax and slow down? Are you going to be okay with that, right? I mean, that's the real question. Are you going to be okay with things if they're moving a lot slower, right? 1, 2, or 3? Are you a self-starter who doesn't wait for others to get things done, right? Even when things are moving a little slower, can you stay in the game? Can you make things happen, right? Being a self-starter, very, very important. 1, 2, or 3? Are you willing to learn some of the new language? Some or a lot, right? But some certainly. A lot is better, of course, right? So are you willing to, take the effort and you know what, and look like a silly fool sometimes, like I did with, año versus ano, right? I mean, I thought I was speaking Spanish and I was speaking Spanish, just the wrong Spanish. So, a sense of humor will help you get through a lot of those mistakes. But you have to be willing to kind of like make the mistakes and be able to laugh at yourself, right? So that's important. Can you make new friends, right? You're going to leave wherever you're from, right? Presumably it's a work environment or a social environment. Maybe it's a church or a Rotary club or a softball group or a soccer club or whatever you're doing, right? You're going to leave all your friends and move somewhere new. How do you make new friends? Are you comfortable doing that? That's really, really important. We're going to talk more about that later too. Do you see the world as, a glass half full or half empty? Right. So are you optimistic? I guess the question here is, are you an optimist? Right. No, sometimes yes. That's for that. Are you financially secure that you don't need to work? Right. What doesn't matter so much, digital nomading has sort of changed number 7. But the question here might be, do you have a skill set that allows you to work remotely? Right? Can you do what you do working remotely? Because most of these countries will not give you a work permit to take a job from a local. But if you're working remotely using a digital nomad visa, and we're going to look at some of those in a few minutes, then you have that ability. So change question 7 to more like, can you work remotely? Do you have a skill that fits the remote work lifestyle? Are you open to new adventures, new activities? Right? You're going to try some new stuff, right? Not just new foods and things, but new adventures and new activities, right? This is how you're going to engage and meet new people and really become part of a new community. Do you have a hobby or something, an interest of some kind that you want to pursue? At Grand Pacific, it's wonderful. We have a group of folks who set up a book writing group, and they're on WhatsApp, and there's it's like a support group. They support each other, and they get together once in a while, and they read each other's work. So we have, I don't know, 6 or 7 authors at Grand Pacifica now, right? And so that's a new interest for a lot of people, but it's a hobby. It's something that you can pursue. I like this one. Are you comfortable being a visible minority in a country, right? You're probably going to stand out. That doesn't mean anything bad necessarily. It just means that you're going to stand out. Can you be comfortable with that? Are you going to be comfortable with that? Obviously, it's a guess, but you know yourself. Put something down for that. Uh, I like this one. Are you easygoing enough to deal with long lines and bureaucratic delays? I can assure you, whatever time you think it's going to take you to get your new driver's license or your residency card or whatever it is you're trying to do, you're not even close. So just be ready. And if can you handle that, right? Can you handle that? Uh, are you interested in getting involved in new communities, clubs, and activities? Again, we're going to talk more about that later, but this means can you get out of your shell? Are you willing to, even if you're an introvert and you like being by yourself, right? No person is an island unto themselves. So are you going to be able to get out of your comfort zone probably and make new friends by finding community activities, clubs, things like that? How creative are you, right? When you're faced with a problem, sometimes you can run down to the Home Depot of sorts. I mean, most countries, now have a Home Depot like place, but a lot of times you can't find what you need, so you're going to have to get creative. And so, can you be creative, not just in fixing things, but in relationships or culture shock? There's lots of ways that we can be challenged, where creativity is the way we get through it. So, very, very important. And then can you respect the culture, right? Can you understand it's somebody else's country? And if you can respect that and really honor that, you will be received as a member of the community, and your level of I guess tranquility will be much, much higher. And then this one, are you healthy enough physically and mentally that you don't need a lot of medical care? This one kind of cuts both ways. A lot of the digital nomad visas require a proof of health insurance. You can't move to a country. In some countries you can, and we'll talk about that. Other countries require you to have health insurance. So being healthy is really important. On the other hand, you can buy insurance in a lot of these countries as an expat. It's less expensive, far less expensive than it is living in the US and having insurance in the US or Canada. And then you can also pay out of pocket for a lot of medical things that you would pay out astronomically for in Europe, United States, Canada. So anyway, so this is it. These are the 15 questions. Add them up. And how'd you do, right? So if you're less than 20, really just stay home. I'm almost certain that nobody on here is less than 20. In fact, if I had to make a prediction, in fact, why don't we do this? If you want to stick in the chat or something, just your points, just throw your points in there. Maybe by the end, Dan, you can just sort of do a tally of where people are. But 20 to 29, you can do it, but it's going to be a little tough, right? 30 to 35, yeah, you can go ahead and do it. I mean, it's going to probably work for you, but you're going to have to cope a little bit. And then 36 and above, like, yeah, you are prime for this. And what I find is on, the webinars like this, the conferences that we speak at, most people come to one of these really in that 30 and above, many people in the 36 and above. But by the way, it's not to say that if you're not in those numbers, you can't make it work. Just understand that it will be more stressful. You will be pushed outside of your comfort zone to make it work. I would encourage you to do that because I think that the benefits of being an expat are huge, huge. And worth the sacrifice if there are some. But anyway, put your numbers in the thing, and Dan will kind of run it up, and he'll tell us later. This is my wife Carol, my daughter Amanda, myself back in 2002. We moved to Nicaragua for what we thought would be 2 or 3 years. And we had another little daughter came along a couple years later, Emily. My family visited. The girls had a great time. Carol's family visited. We had a ball. I would say we had the best of both worlds, right? We still watched football games. We're Steeler fans, or at least I am, and Emily is. My older one, not so much anymore. But anyway, we had Girl Scouts, right? I mean, and when they had incredible dance instruction, and so we had all of what I would call the stuff that we might have had back home, right? Plus, we were out in butterfly farms. We were hiking in the jungle, going out and finding howler monkeys. I mean, just doing all kinds of things. My girls built a shoe program because school is free, but kids have to have shoes. So they brought in thousands and thousands of shoes and distributed those. So the girls really had an incredible experience across the board. And this is a kind of experience that we can have as expats, right? Uh, one of the things my wife loved was, we had a woman come to our house and give her a massage about once a week. And it was, I don't know, it was $12, I think. I mean, the exchange rate changed, but 12, $15 for an hour massage in your home. That's not my wife. That's not our home. But anyway, but it's a very good visual of what it's like for $15, right? 12 to $15, get a nice massage. We had a maid. I mean, we never had a maid. We're back in the States now. We don't have a maid, right? But a maid is a life changer, because what a maid means is no chores, no chores, right? And so you have this incredible expansion of quality time in the evenings, right? You're not doing dishes, you're not cleaning, you're not doing laundry, right? And so in the evenings, on the weekends, you can kind of say, well, what do you want to do this evening? Oh, where do you want to go this weekend? Oh, let's go find a butterfly farm. Let's go to the cloud forest. Or let's go to the beach and camp out and watch the baby turtles hatch, or whatever it was, right? And so we didn't have these chores. And a maid in the developing world is affordable, and it just changes your life so dramatically in wonderful, positive ways. We ate organic fruits and vegetables, hormone-free meats and cheeses every day. Every day. We shopped in the local markets. We had a bag of organic fruits and vegetables delivered to our home, a coffee sack. I mean, a coffee sack, right? Imagine how big that is, right? Delivered to our house every Tuesday, and it was $8. I mean, if you went down to Whole Paycheck, which is what I call Whole Foods, if you went down to Whole Paycheck and bought 2 tomatoes, it would be $8. I'm whatever, right? I mean, a whole coffee sack full. So again, being able to take this lifestyle of health and vibrancy and actually do it affordably. This is huge. We'd go to the movies. We'd sit in a lazy boy recliner. You'd order off a menu. People bring you food, and it was about $4 to $5 for the ticket. I mean, like, it's just so, and the movies are in English, right? It's first run American movies. The day they come out in America, they come out in Latin America. They're in English, they're subtitled in Spanish, and you sit there for $4, $5, $6. You order food, they bring it to you. It's incredible. So the affordability is tremendous. And we lived in Nicaragua, so this is one of our favorite restaurants, Doña Haide. I mean, you could get all of that food for 10, 12, 15 people, and it would not even be $100. I mean, it's so affordable to go out to dinner, to entertain, and really live an incredibly wonderful lifestyle. Healthy lifestyle. Medical care, very affordable. You can see a private nurse, $400 to $500 a month. Get your teeth cleaned, $30. I mean, that's less than a copay in the US, right? Chiropractor, $20 to $30, depending on what you're doing. My wife took the girls to acupuncture at the Japanese I'm not even sure what it was, facility. It was set up by the Japanese. They trained Nicaraguans in how to do acupuncture and massage, and it was even less, right? And so great hospitals, great institutions, traditional medicine, non-traditional medicine, a lot of blending of the two, which we don't see in the developing world, which is, again, very, very refreshing. You want to go to the hospital, you want the standard treatment, they got great hospitals, right? You want the alternatives, phenomenal opportunities. But the blended is really where we settled, and it worked very well for our family. We talk about the number of people who can do it. Well, it's about a fifth of the people, coming up on a quarter of the people now can work remotely. And this is huge, right? And that number is probably going to grow over time. I mean, you look at, work-life shift. We talked about that. But that last one, kind of that new era, right? This balance where, think about retirees who people, not retirees, but people who always said to themselves, when I retire, that was always a line. You know what? Because I've been doing this for 32 years now. Our company is 29 years old. ECI Development, 29 years old. I've been speaking at conferences and talked to literally tens of thousands of people over the last 30 years. And, people that when I retire, that's what they say. I'm going to move to pick a country, Belize, because I love to scuba dive, right? Well, guess what? Now many people, a quarter of the workforce roughly, can move to Belize. They can scuba dive on the weekends or in the mornings or the evenings. They can do their job, right? They don't have to wait 10, 15, 20 years to retire to get this lifestyle, right? So you can have this balanced lifestyle now, right? You do the hobbies, the things you want, you get the excitement, you get to build the new community, and you get to keep working. This is huge. And, if we look at the next generation, we're talking about people kind of, maybe in their 40s, 50s, 60s, kind of pre-retiree, but you got this whole group of millennials, and almost half, 45% say they want to live and work overseas. And some will buy, but most will rent, right? Because this idea of remote work and digital nomading is kind of nomadic, right? I'm going to go here for 3 months. I'm going to go there for 3 months, kind of, move around, try some different things. But almost half of these 83 million millennials, so it's at 40 million people, probably going to spend some time overseas doing the remote work, digital nomad kind of lifestyle, which is huge because if we're investors, and I just point this out, it may make sense for us to own a property that these digital nomads would want to rent, right? Because again, many of them are not going to buy, at least initially. They may settle down after several years and find the place they like and then buy. But many of them, 40 million of them wanting to do this, right? Going to be running around renting. So there's some incredible investment opportunities out there for folks who want to serve the millennials who want this lifestyle and until they could afford to buy in the future. I like this word, workspitality, right? Work and hospitality coming together because it really is a blending of work and travel, right? And you do it in these wonderful, inspiring environments. You see productivity boosts. Most of the surveys out there about work productivity say it's up, right? A lot of it has to do with the lack of commuting, right? But it is part of that balance, right? That work-life balance that we're trying to achieve. And when we can do that in these really cool, exciting, inspiring environments, right? Cool places, fun places with neat people around us, right? I think we're happier, and when we're happier, we're more productive, and so we can see that. And then, comfortable workspaces, the vibrant communities, all of these things, they tie together very, very importantly to create this concept of, work and hospitality, workspitality. That's a mouthful, but anyway, uh, and why it works. Well, the affordability, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. But that's a big part of it, right? The affordability, the relaxation, the being able to be in these really cool places. But I actually think the bottom one there, the third one, the community connection. I don't know about you all, but I find it very, very challenging to find people in my hometown that I can really relate to, right? I mean, there was one guy who knew some of the same people in Nicaragua I knew in my town, right? And so we could connect, but that's one person, right? When we go overseas and we start to come into this community of people who expat community, right? Or digital nomad community, but that's still an expat community, whether you live permanently or you're kind of moving through, right? There's this spirit of adventure. The people who scored high on that little 15-question quiz, right? You're going to surround yourself with people that kind of get you and you get them. And that's important. And that's probably the thing I hear most from people who do this. They actually expat, is the relationships that they're building are meaningful and significant in ways that they couldn't find back home, wherever back home was. So very, very important. And then, and this is kind of what we think of, right? When we think about a world of options, we think of activities, which are important, but I'd like to drill it down a little bit more because this is where the rubber meets the road on selection, right? The 15 questions kind of give us, do we have a character or a personality that makes living overseas right for us, right? But now we have to drill it down. The world's a big place. And sure, if you're going to digital nomad for the next 10 years, 3 months at a time, what's that? 40 locations, right? Well, you can see a lot of the world in 10 years, 3 months at a time, right? But many of us want to settle down, and we have geographies that we prefer. And so what's really interesting about the world, and in this case, it's really just Latin America, but it carries across, is you've got lots of geographies. You've got cold, like four seasons. You got cold, cold, right? Way south or way north, but four seasons. You've got hot, around the tropics, right, around the equator. You've got cool, right, which could be the middle latitudes, but it can also be altitude at the tropics. All right, we'll talk about that in a second. You've got humid areas, you've got dry areas, right? You've got moist areas. So you've got all these different kind of geographies. Well, then you can pair it up with, do I want to live in a city, an urban environment? Do I want to live in a resort setting? Do I like the beaches or do I like the mountains, right? And so you start to mix all this together, right? And then do you want to be on your own? Some people do, but most people want to be around other people. So a community or a planned community or urban, a neighborhood, right, in a city. And then I think for digital nomads, what's really important is you really can't bet on the come, right? Like if you're digital nomading, you need a place to go, you need friends, neighbors, activities, and so what you really want to look for is something that you can plug into right now. So this is a mouthful, right? I mean, this is a lot of different considerations, mix match. I mean, there's a lot of lines going across there, but what I like to do is simplify it to some visual images that are very, very helpful, right? If you want a vineyard experience, you can get that in Argentina or Chile, right? And we call it Denver with vineyards, right? You're right up against the Andes Mountains on one side or the other, vineyards to the base of the mountains. It's Napa Valley for 10 cents on the dollar, right? Like if you can afford Napa Valley, go do it, right? But if you can't, here you can have that same lifestyle experience for 10 cents on the dollar. Cuenca, Ecuador is a beautiful old colonial city, as you can see in this picture. It sits at about 8,000 feet above sea level. It's springtime all the time. This is that cool weather in the tropics, right? It's almost exactly on the equator in Ecuador, but it's at 8,000 feet. So it's, I don't know, I'll make up some numbers, 60 at night and 75 in the day. I'm close on that. It's like springtime every day, right? And it's a cool urban environment. You could find rural environments that are very similar. Some people say, you know what? I love the desert. I love Phoenix, Arizona, Scottsdale. I want to live in the desert, but I'm also an ocean person. Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, right? That is desert at the ocean. It's also an urban environment. I want something a little less urban. No problem. Run up the Baja Peninsula, either side, right? Sea of Cortez, Pacific, depending on if you like to surf, you like to fish, right? So desert at the beach. On the right side, you've got sort of the Southern California climate. It's a spectacular climate. It kind of runs from the middle of Costa Rica up to southern Mexico on the Pacific, right? So you get this incredible, what I call year-round golf, cactus and palm trees, Southern California climate. And then in the bottom, sort of what I would call the stereotypical, Caribbean tropics, right? Lots of islands around the Caribbean, nations in Central America like Belize that offer the same thing, but for very, very affordable numbers. And so I think that's really what we're looking at. But I hope these visuals help us understand what these various geographies mean. And there are just so many different permutations of those combinations of those things. So when we start to look at visas and residencies, which is again sort of the next level of rubber meets the road. We're the right kind of person that wants to go overseas. We've kind of narrowed it down. We like the beach. We like the Pacific beaches because those are different than the Atlantic, and we want something that's Southern California climate. Okay, great. Now we've kind of narrowed it down to two or three countries. And so we go visit, right? And we pick one of them. Well, now we have to figure out how we stay there, right? Because when we come through the immigration office, they stamp our passport, say, welcome to Nicaragua, for example, or Costa Rica, where you get a 30, 60, 90-day visa. But how do you really stay? Well, the tourist visa lets you stay for, a few months maybe. The residency lets us stay for a long time. Citizenship, we're not even going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about residency, which gives you the right to stay somewhere. And I know a lot of people like the informal program. And this was one. So people, expats living in Nicaragua would go to Costa Rica every 90 days for a long weekend. People in Costa Rica would come up to Nicaragua every 90 days for a long weekend. And when they went home back to their country where they were expats, they'd get a new 90-day tourist visa. And you know what? These programs work. They do. These programs absolutely work just fine until they don't. In COVID, the borders shut down. The offices of immigration shut down. You couldn't go get your passport stamped at the immigration office for another 90 days. and you couldn't go across the border to Costa Rica or Panama or wherever to come back in and get it stamped again. Informal programs work until they don't. And you know what? There was benevolence on the part of, government bureaucrats that said, well, we're not going to kick you out of the country. We're not going to make you an illegal immigrant in a, in a foreign country. They kind of went with it. They understood the circumstances, but they didn't have to. Everybody who was over 90 days on their visas in those countries were actually illegal immigrants in a foreign country. And you know what? I don't ever want to be that, because there's just so many better ways. Legitimate residency is something that you can get. Yes, it takes a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of effort. But my goodness, we're talking about, really a very, very important thing. Your right to be in a country where you choose to be, right? Your right to be there. And so digital nomad visas are out there. Costa Rica and Panama. These are, in fact, we have a residency guide. Don't worry so much about this. If you ask for the residency guide, it's all in there. In fact, much more detail. I've just pulled out some points just to give you some idea. But Costa Rica and Panama, you have to show an income of $3,000 a month. You get a visa for 12 months. And there's some other benefits, right? In Costa Rica, by the way, I put this on here for a reason. If you're a digital nomad, you actually get access to Costa Rica's health system, which is incredible. They're one of the few countries that actually give you access. So that's an interesting point. Ecuador, a lot less expensive, $1,300, show proof of income. Health insurance is required. And so that's your digital nomad visa. Going over to Europe, we have Spain and Malta. I just picked a couple countries. The residency guide, I think, has like 30 countries in there. So I just picked two. Spain, say, what's that, 2,400 euros, so $2,500 a year. The nice thing about Spain, by the way, the reason I picked it as an example is that if you do the residency and you do it for 5 years, you can actually then apply for permanent residency, right? And that's pretty cool. So Spain gives you the ability to track to permanent residency using the digital nomad. Malta, same kind of thing, 2,700, so about $3,000. There, it's an interesting island nation. If you get a chance to go there, I'm a big fan. I think it's really cool. And then just sort of as we move across to Kenya and Dubai, and then this is an annual income of 55, but proof of employment. Dubai is a little bit more, $5,000 a month. So depending on where you want to go, there are different requirements for these digital nomad visas. The other thing is a lot of people are in search of a permanent residency. There are ways to acquire those through investment. Panama has a great program. It's about $22,000. You can get a permanent residency in Panama for about $22,000. Nicaragua offers one through an investment in teak. Panama does as well. About 31,000, whatever, gets you a permanent residency and an acre of teak trees. Belize permanent residency is at the higher end of the spectrum for residency, $250,000 investment, but you get permanent residency in Belize. So different options, digital nomad, some permanent residency ideas. But this guide right here is jam-packed with lots of details about 30 countries, programs, all kinds, retiree visas, digital nomad visas, investor visas. Take a look at this. This is a great guide. Reach out, info@ecidevelopment.com, put in the subject line residency guide, and we'll send you the download for that. And we're going to wrap up now with this concept of community and really why it's important, but also how we get it, right? How do we get community? If you like to surf, find a place where there's lots of surfers and you'll make friends and go hit the waves together, right? People with kids, we loved this. We were out doing turtle releases, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a year. We did turtle protection. Part of the year when the turtles are laying their eggs, you're out protecting, making sure people don't steal the eggs, right? And then when the eggs hatch, you come out and you put them in the ocean. It's a phenomenal activity. So more and more people moving overseas with kids, and these are the kinds of things that you'd want to look for. This is our Grand Pacifica community, golf course in place if you like to golf. Panama is a great jurisdiction, again, with a lot of diversity. They've got highlands with the cool weather. They've got Boquete is an expat community. Some people want that, some people don't. If you speak the language, that's great. You can be anywhere. If you only speak English when you're moving, you might want to land here, learn some Spanish for 3 months or 6 months, and then move on, right? But you can build an expat community of friends. Panama City, same thing. This is urban at the beach. Panama City, a major urban center, on the water, on the Pacific Ocean. Hot. Think of Miami, hot, humid at the ocean, but a major city. Lots of expats here as well. And then Belize, a lot of people look at Belize because of language. It's easy, right? The population is small, but the official language is English, and that really is a soft landing for so many people where language is a concern. I actually don't think it should be. If you're willing to, make a few mistakes and laugh at yourself, go somewhere and learn a little Spanish and practice it and make a fool of yourself once in a while. I did many times. So one example tonight. But if language is really something that you're struggling with the idea, Belize is a great country because English is the official language. Think Cayman Islands 20 years ago. People love it. I mean, I love TripAdvisor because it's what people who visited said. It's just top of the charts year after year. Ambergris Caye, everyone drives around on golf carts, great seafood. The Caribbean influence is wonderful. The mainland has tremendous activities. Again, lots of expats doing fun things, whether you want to be on the water, in the water, doing things, ECI got to get it in here. Two quick slides. If we're building a Marriott hotel, if owning a Marriott property is something that you want to do, starting at $350 for an oceanfront property. But for a lot of folks looking to live in Belize, that's more of an investment, by the way. The Marriott's probably considered more of an investment than a lifestyle property. But 3 blocks off the water, $150,000, you can own a condo, a residential condo, 3 blocks off the water for 150 grand. Folks, like this is unheard of. You can't touch this. I mean, you'd be hard to touch it in Belize. You could never touch it in a place like the Cayman Islands, Turks and Caicos, British Virgin Islands, Bahamas. And so when you have this kind of affordability for acquisition, it's tremendous. I know that Fabio's on here. He's our property manager there. People are renting these long-term, 3 months, 6 months, 1-year leases. And so the rental 3 blocks off the water is also very, very affordable. And if you're looking to acquire, financing's available, crypto's accepted, metals are accepted, and self-directed IRAs are another way to make an acquisition if and when you're ready to do that. So why are people doing it? Why are people expatting? Well, it's really the combination of these 4 things: the affordability, the health and wellness, right? That was a big part for us. The vibrant locations, whatever floats your boat, whatever it is that excites you, right? Mountains, beach, snorkeling, surfing, hiking, whatever it is, right? Those vibrant locations. And then ultimately community. And, I always like to put up the, Mobius strip, right? This strip, a piece of paper. If you don't know it, it's incredible. Take a piece of paper and a strip, flip one side of it over 180 degrees, attach the two together, and you now have a one-sided piece of paper. Like, this is incredible, a one-sided piece of paper. You think, well, every piece of paper has two. Just put your finger on it and start tracing it around. Your finger gets back to where it started, right? Mobius strip is a one-sided piece of paper, and it's a paradox. And the paradox of expatting is simply that you can truly have a higher quality of life, and it costs a lot less. I think most of us make the assumption, rightly so, that in our home countries, if we want a higher quality of life, we have to spend more. But when we go overseas, we can truly have an incredibly high quality of life, a higher quality of life that costs far, far less. And one of the things that we can do to really give that quality of life, just the ultimate is by finding friends and peers and new relationships. I would say join the Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions Club, find faith-based organization, something. join some of these service organizations. You will meet a lot of locals. I mean, sometimes there's expats too, but you're going to meet a lot of locals. And even if you're in a Spanish speaking country, for example, almost all the business people in the major cities throughout Latin America speak English, and they're Rotarians or they're Lions members or they're Kiwanis members. And so when you join these associations, you'll meet local folks who speak English if you don't happen to speak the local language. Uh, and so, a great way to make new friends, but also to get involved and do things that are important, whether it's environmental engagement, you're out, doing things in the environment, you're doing the community gardens, or whether it's, more humanitarian with medical and health or water programs, right? All of these organizations have projects that they work with. They invite other groups, their sister groups in from the U.S. and Canada and around the world. So you're gonna continually be building a network of friends, but you're also going to be doing the things that really give significance and meaning to life. And so I would encourage you to do this. Join some of these organizations, go to the meetings, get involved, get engaged, build a network of friends and peers and associates, build a new community of people who share similar desires to make a difference, and have fun too. Like it all hangs together, right? Whether it's playing golf or hanging out on a beach island with a whole bunch of people, having a great Sunday fun day, right? Heading off to the bars in the evening, or having a nice meal out with your friends, right? All of these things are possible when you build community. And the other thing that I just would add is, if you're bringing children, the children can be children. My girls jumped off of cliffs, they climbed on rocks, they climbed trees, they played in the jungle. My children had an incredible childhood that I think is hard to get in the U.S. Because it's much more free. And I find that my life was much more free as well. And I'm someone who loves freedom, and I know that many of you are as well. If you have an adventurous spirit, generally you want more freedom in your life, but you also take responsibility for your actions, right? This personal responsibility and freedom go together. So Latin America, the developing world, wherever that may be, you're going to find it, and it's powerfully important. So it's a mega reality. We have the chance to take advantage of this decoupling of work and the location of work. It's very exciting, very, very exciting. And I just want to make a quick plug. I'll be speaking at the Escape Artist event, their Plan B Summit in Las Vegas later this year, May 3rd and 4th. And if you want to come to this conference, I don't know if there's a price on there or not. Dan, you'll have to say the price. I think it's $299, but anyway, it's a 2 day
It's
conference, jam
299
packed.
with
What,
early
what
bird
is it,
pricing
Dan?
currently at
How much?
199, and that promo code gives you 10% off.
What is it, Dan? I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
It's currently 199.
199. Okay. So 2 day conference, 199. You get 10% off. I know all of the speakers. It's going to cover everything from asset protection to banking to crypto and privacy. We have expat panels. We've got a former ambassador who's going to do some speaking as well. So this is a great, great conference, jam-packed. 2 very solid full days. Start at 8 in the morning, goes till 6 o'clock both days. This is a great value if you're thinking about expatting, you want to build a plan B, or just you want to come meet other people like yourselves and some of the other expats who are part of this. This is a great event. And that's how you get a hold of me, how you get a hold of us. Um, I think I'm going to hand it back to you, Dan, and we can look at some Q&A. I went over a lot, and I'm sorry. If everybody's okay to stay on a few more minutes, maybe we can run an extra 10 minutes over, or 15 minutes more, to get some Q&A if there are some, Dan.
Yeah, we have some questions.
Okay.
Could you clarify the price of the Marriott? I think there was some confusion with some of the listeners, or you misspoke. So the starting
Uh,
price of the Marriott units?
349,000
Okay,
for an
349.
oceanfront Marriott residence, fully titled, 100% ownership.
Okay. Um, a lot of the questions revolved around income and what digital nomads do for income.
Yep.
Um, and you all could speak to it, but I mean, from my experience, there's not one uh, job or industry that I think most of them work in. Maybe it used to be a lot of coding and software engineering at the beginning of kind of the remote wave. Um, but I mean, I find now that it's truly just a vast array because all companies and all industries are realizing that there's some positions that could be remote. And like you might get someone that does bookkeeping for florists in Idaho, and then you have a guy coding for Google in California, and they both live in Portugal or something like that. So, like, I mean, obviously, things, uh, jobs that can be done on a computer uh, are really the main things. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah, Dan, I would agree. When I was living in Belize, I had a friend who owned an online marketing company. I had another friend who was a consultant for Microsoft. I had friends who were virtual assistants for people all throughout the world doing various tasks online for them. So yeah, there's really no like one job, but there's lots of different ways to kind of go about either creating your own job online or looking for work online.
yeah, I think if you're well into your career, at least like I'd say 10 years in and you have a skill set, um, going down the entrepreneurial route and selling your skill, whether that be bookkeeping, coding, writing, designing, anything like that, that gets you kind of away from the shackles of a company that might want you physically there. But I
Hey,
mean, yeah.
Dan, you mentioned that people were asking about the different incomes and things like that. The residency guide for each of the digital nomad visas in whatever 30 countries. By the way, they don't all have a digital nomad. Because some of them are just retiree, some are investor. I'm guessing that 25 of them have a digital nomad similar, and the description in that document lists income requirements for all the different varieties of visas. So that's a document. If somebody has specific questions about income requirements or any requirements for those visas, get a copy of that document because it's very, very rich in information.
Yep. And so reiterating, please send an email to info@ecidevelopment.com, which is on the screen right now still. So the next question, um, specific details about properties. If you email us those, we can give you more information about those properties. Um, but I do see all all the vast questions on that, and Betsy, you can help with that. Um, and then what advice would you give to someone considering their first move abroad as a digital nomad? Um, I think the first, I'll go first. Uh, the main advice I would give someone is it's really just don't delay it. I meet so many people that have visited the same country year after year for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and they keep saying they're gonna do it, they're gonna do it, and they just they keep visiting and loving it, but then finding little things that they don't like. And I think you need to stop looking for things that you don't like and pull the trigger because I I really feel that you the worst thing that can happen is you pack up and you go home and you have an experience and you learn something about yourself. You learn what you did not like, which is arguably just as valuable as finding out what you do like. And so, like, do not look at it as a failure because you lasted 20 days or 60 days or 90 days and you told everyone you were going to move there for years. Like, it's your journey, it's not everyone else's journey. Like, set zero expectations, go there, like knowing that like anything could really happen, but obviously go with intentions of staying and take the advice that Mike listed out. But don't be afraid to not like it, because like if you didn't do a lot of research, you might not like it, but there's a lot of value in that experience that you had in finding out the specific things you didn't like, because the next time you do it, the chances of you enjoying it and liking it and spending more time there are exponentially higher. So
Who else is tackling that question? I want to hear some other opinions.
Well, I think the first thing I would say is pack your patience. That was one of the first things somebody told me when I moved to Belize. I know you alluded to it, Mike, at the beginning of your presentation, but things are not always going to be smooth. You will stand in a lot of lines. You will have to fill out duplicates and triplicates, and I don't even know how many forms of the same document, because the government of whatever country you're in will want hundreds of copies of the same thing for no apparent reason. But you have to remember that you're not in your own country and things are done differently. And if you wanted to stay in your own country and have things done the way you know that they're done, you would have stayed there. And so, yeah, pack your patience and respect that you're somewhere else and you have to abide by the laws and the customs and of the country that you're in. It's hard. It's not always easy, especially if you're coming from North America where things are go, 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 go. Um, you know, moving to the Caribbean was hard for me. It's slow. Things take time. But it can also be really good for you to focus on living in the moment and just kind of accepting that you can't control everything that happens.
Fabio.
Yeah, hello everyone. I mean, I couldn't agree more. It's like what Dan said, an adventure starts with the first step, you know? And for me, it's so enriching to go to a different culture. In the questionnaire, the optimistic was the only one that I put actually three, I think. Well, some others too. But it's in this short life, to have the ability, and now more than ever, to experience new things is just take you a first step, because the costs of it, actually Belize for example, I've been here for 8 9 months now. It in the beginning it has a very laid back style, so when you come from big cities you are used to things that faster. But then you see so many people that are in the same situation, expats, and they understand you. And it doesn't take 2 3 days for you to already feel like, actually, I might like it. And like Dan said as well, if you don't, 2 hours away from US major cities and just go back. But for the experience itself, it has never been so affordable and easy to do, because for example here we have apartments that I mean you can stay for a month, fully furnished with kitchens, and we have swimming pool, gym, where you will meet people, and this will cost you nothing, really nothing, compared to US cities for the experience. The infrastructure for Wi-Fi and remote work has improved a lot considerably in the last few years. uh, the visas, very easy to get. I'm talking about Belize, 30 days stamp, boom. You want to stay for more 30 days, $100, fine. So many local activities to do that even if the work itself doesn't, you don't enjoy it, the experience you will. It's a beautiful place, nice people, English speaking, and I really like the experience here. And I've been an expat for 25 years in different countries, and Belize, for example, it's a very easygoing place.
Yep. Thank you, Fabio.
thanks, Fabio.
Aria, you're muted. You're muted, Aria.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I came 2001 actually to visit my sister in Nicaragua. She's married to a German Nicaraguan guy from Matagalpa. They work in coffee business. So I came and I was already working for Intercontinental Hotel Groups. And I remember I was in a Nehapa Country Club. There was a wedding going on, and the GM of the Intercontinental made me an offer, but he told me, as you said, Mike, you have to be proactive. You have to go and make lines to get your visa or your residency. But I said, you know what? I always wanted to move to other country. I love to learn other languages. So I started to do that. I took courses, 3 months of Spanish courses, and then I started to work. It took me a long time. Yes, it took me 1 year to get my residency, but I got it. And I'm so happy that I made this move. Uh, we have a lot of bureaucracy also in Germany, but here is a little bit different. You need a little bit more passion. You have to be very nice to the people when you talk to the immigration officers, which comes actually from my heart. So I don't have basically any issues at all. Uh, and I want to mention something which you mentioned about the medicine. In 2009, maybe none of you knows that, I had a big issue with the problem with my stomach. We didn't know what it was. I went to Germany, they examined me, and then I came back. I found a doctor here, Dr. Guillermo Porras at Metropolitano, and they made a surgery for me and they saved my life. And to be honest with you, I'm sure if I would have been in Germany or other country, I probably would have been gone. So uh, I celebrated my second birthday in this country, and
Nice.
I love the way that people ask you, where are you from? They don't ask you in a bad way. They ask you, they want to know more about you. They're happy, they're proud of their country. They say, have you ever tried the gallo pinto? Have you tried rice and beans? Have you tried this? And if you're open to the new cultures, to new yeah, the way of living, you will feel well. And believe me, I came 6 months ago. I came back again from Germany. I was gone from 2015 to 2024. I couldn't stand it anymore. And I think doctors told me you might have a depression or something, but it wasn't a depression. I was missing Nicaragua. So I'm very happy to be back. I'm very happy to be with ECI. We have wonderful tiny houses here, wonderful condos. We have a nice golf course, and we are offering long packages with rental car. So I would say just come over as Daniel said, don't think it for 3 or 4 years. Just take a decision. If you don't like it, just get your ticket and you go back to your home. Yeah, thank
Exactly.
you. This is
Yeah,
my
that's great.
experience.
Yeah, well, thank you guys. Dan, any short, easy questions we could kind of
Yeah,
just
just a
run
quick
down the
one
list
from
again? And
just a quick one from the side of the retirees. Like the there were a couple, but the essence of it is really like the effect. Does being abroad have any effect on your Social Security in Medicare? I would assume they're keeping their Medicare in the States, but
yeah,
I'm
I
not
can
sure
answer
if it
that
affects.
very simply. The Social Security is a contract you have with the federal government, U.S. federal government, and it's an obligation the government has to pay you no matter where you live. So most people do direct deposit now, so you can have it direct deposited anywhere. Um, Medicare, Medicaid are only available in your home country or home state in the Medicaid case. So anyway, so you'd have to go back to your home state for that for Medicare, Medicaid. But your Social Security is yours. You paid into it. It's a contract that they must repay you, and so direct deposit's the easiest way to deal with Social Security when you're living overseas.
Okay, and then just a reminder for everyone that's asking about the residency guide, please email
Yes.
info@eastguidedevelopment.com. You will get it tonight or within the next hours, but you will get it. We have someone monitoring that email address. And any questions that we didn't get to because of time, please send them over. And yeah, we look forward to seeing everyone on the next webinar, which will be in a couple weeks, I'm sure. And yeah,
Come visit.
also,
Buy your plane tickets.
yes, come to Vegas, meet us, ask us
Yeah.
questions. The skateboarders events are always a good time.
Yes.
So yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone. Have a good night. Appreciate all of you for being here and especially appreciate Mike, Aria, Fabio, Betsy,
Thank
for
you.
participating in the webinar as well. So thank you and good night.
Thanks, guys.